Hello and welcome to another episode of Shoot the Artist, the podcast that talks to a whole range of different people from across the entertainment industry. As always, I'm your host, Oliver Rednall, and in this episode, it's a little bit different because I actually got to talk to someone who I know quite well, who I've known for a number of years. We trained together. I've seen him navigate different projects, so he's appeared in a whole range of TV programs such as EastEnders. He appeared in Johnny English Strikes Again. The Rook. He was also on BBC's Trigonometry. He also last year directed his first short film, Hard to Reach, which was absolutely excellent, and I think it's the best role he's done. In this podcast, we discuss the whole difficulty of getting something made. I think a lot of actors are trying to get their shorts made or get a feature off the ground, and we understand how difficult that is. And he managed to do that, and he's done a wonderful job. It looks amazing. It doesn't have any of the sort of first short film look about it that many of us might have experienced or acted in or directed ourselves. It's a really good job with some wonderful performances from both of them. We talk about how filming on a train and the difficulties surrounding that. When I was watching it, I sat there thinking this must have been an absolute nightmare to shoot this. But he's done just a stellar job, and how he came from, I've seen his journey from sort of starting out to now directing his own project. So it was amazing to talk to him. Sit back, relax, as always, and I give you Mr. Darryl Foster.
Darryl, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on, Ollie.
It's good to have you. So what I wanted to talk to you about is, this is the first film you've ever made. You started out as an actor. You are an actor. What brought you to this journey? Because we're told all the time about how we need to make our own things, and I think we all know that, but it's something that has to be right and in the time that's right for you. Does that resonate with you? Is that how you felt?
Yeah. So as you know, I wrote and directed my first short film, which is called Hard to Reach. We shot it April 2022, and we're sort of like halfway through our festival run. It's been an amazing experience. But to answer your question, I mean, the sort of impetus for it did come from at the time during lockdown. I guess lots of us had time on our hands, and I'd always had this story in my head that I wanted to get out. I didn't know whether it was going to be a stage play. I didn't know if it would be a TV series. I didn't know if it would be a film. But I had a few friends around me at the time, I still do, but who were in the short film circuit, so to speak. And it kind of really put it on my radar, and I thought maybe a short film was a way to go. But a big impetus was the fact that at the time, I wasn't getting the acting roles, or I didn't feel I was getting seen in roles that really showed me as a three-dimensional actor. So the purpose was, I'm going to write a script with a character that's very grounded, that's interesting, that's three-dimensional, that's going through a change, and that's what I did, and that's what it started out as. Really was as a way to sort of like, okay, this could be a role that I could act in, that would give me a great opportunity creatively and artistically, but also as a way to sort of like show the industry what I can do.
Yeah, there's something that struck me, because obviously I've known you some years now, and starting out as actors, which we did, when I watched it, it was a much meatier, and it wasn't a vanity project either. It wasn't a vanity project. When I watched this, it could have been made by someone else. It wasn't specifically catered around you, like the other actor, or the other main actor, and it had a sort of equal standing in the film. Also, the thing that struck me the most is we see a lot of short films, and it's great that people are making them, but often they don't always look. They often look like they give an impression of a student film, even at higher budgets. And what struck me about yours was the professionalism that came across: the editing, the writing, the filmmaking, everything, the grading, the acting. Is that something that you really pushed for? That you were not going to settle with a lower standard of finished product?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thank you for that. And yes, the way I approached this was, so I mean, to give some more context, I know you know, but like to give more context to anybody listening, watching, like, so I'm an actor, but I've also worked in the sort of TV industry for a few years now, as a working development in factual entertainment and factual, and more recently in the drama scripted side of things. So I had a lot of exposure to how things are put together, whether that's a pitch or like shooting something for digital or social media or an actual, seeing the process of how writers and directors develop their ideas for TV. So I had that mindset going into it. And someone told me very early on that you should treat your short film as it's your feature, just as a mental thing. Like, sometimes you hear short film filmmakers and they might say things like, oh, I've just got this little short, and it's just a kind of slight psychological thing. Is like, if you're putting it out there as that, then without you knowing it, you're probably approaching it like that. You might not, in my opinion, sort of like go to the nth degree because, it's just a little short. Whereas I, from the outset, thought this is the magnum opus. This is the most important thing. So that's the approach I took, and that's what I sort of like tried my best to put through every aspect of it, whether that's the development, the writing of the script, my ambitions to sort of like, seek BFI funding, or just across the board. But so I think the biggest thing for me was the script. Once I had that nailed down, and that got some traction, and my producer Jessica Plumrosa came on board, that really put us in a good position. And once we secured BFI funding and funding from the production company I worked at, Red Production Company, we could then we had a really solid package, which I think brought forward our crew, and we had a really good crew that loved the project and were on board. And to kind of answer your point, it was an interesting one where I was always a bit self-conscious. I didn't want it to be a vanity project, and that was something I was sort of like somewhat overthinking. And I put measures in place internally, just for me, where I made sure that, because I was, well, for anyone listening, watching, I acted in the film as well. So I played the lead, the character Maury, and I also directed as well. And I just made sure that, I tried to only do 3 takes, and I'd do my takes first. I never wanted it to feel like a situation where I'm trying to make it easier for me so I can sort of get I didn't want to lose the sort of like, the respect or the sort of, the belief from my crew, whoever that is.
Funding.
Yeah.
You have a money counter. It's like, Darryl, you're on your 4th take here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's a big thing, I think. Yeah. And I think this is how you approach it. But I was really self-conscious of not trying to make a vanity. It was never that at all. It came out really organically. But it was on my mind. I didn't want to do a vanity project.
Because even what struck me, and to a sort of regular going audience member, when you see a train in a film, especially a short film that has had a limited budget and you're working with time constraints, I saw a train and I thought, this must have been a nightmare to film. And it was really good. I thought, I was just watching it like, I can't believe Darryl has done this. Like, how has he done this? And it was on a real train. It was really going along, and you filmed within in a carriage or the car of the train.
Yeah, it was. That was so it was a 3-day shoot, and that was the most stressful day. Like, without a shadow of a doubt, it was the one where.
You say the 3-day shoot was just on the train, or the whole shoot?
So the whole shoot was 3 days.
Really?
We did 1 day we shot it chronologically as well, which helped me, especially as a first-time director and acting in it. Just the chronological element was really good because I just knew where I was. But 1 day was sort of like in Birmingham, sort of city centre. The second day was on the train, and the third day we were in sort of like a rural, sort of a forest essentially. Mm-hmm. But day 2, which was on the train, was the most hardest experience. The stress, it really pushed me to that point of like, you just want to scream, or you're gonna snap or something, which I didn't, and I had an amazing team around me. But that was the point where just the pressure was on, because we had 2 hours on the train to get everything we needed, and the train it was a historic train, and that was open to the public, but like as a sort of like a day trip sort of thing. It wasn't like commuters.
Like an experience day out.
Exactly. And the train would go from 2 stations. It would just back and forth on the exact same line. And it was 20 minutes from one station to the other station. And the driver would get out, walk to the other end of the train and go back. He'd do that all day. And we had 2 carriages, one as our sort of like green room and then one to shoot in. So you can imagine the continuity. So whenever we're doing, the shots on Jackson, for example, out the window, which we were doing, they will be going in that direction. So we'd always to get the shots of me, Maury, out the window, the train would have to be going that same direction. So we couldn't get if we did Jackson on the way out, we couldn't get my ones on the way back. We'd have to wait for it to go back out again. Mm-hmm. So it was just a sort of like a technical problem to solve of what shots we can get on the return. And that's when we do sort of the wides and we just try and trick it. But that was a lot of stress. And it was a point where I can honestly say my experience, knowledge, skill set as a director versus the problems I'm trying to solve, it became that point where the problems were outweighing my experience, because it's the first film I've ever directed. And that's where I had to sort of like, you sort of lean on or take experience of my DOP, Ahmet Hussein, who's just incredible. Also, my co-producer, who's also my cousin, Michael P. Spencer, and just the people around me, and the other my other co-star, Corey McLean. Just that's where it felt like we just really became. It felt like theatre, like when we did the IDSA sort of like showcase theatre scene. It felt like that. We became a company, and it felt like theatre in a sense, because it was just so. The time was ticking. We didn't have time to even watch playback. We just had to go, and it was. Yeah, stressful, but I think we got it in the end. We saved that scene in the edit. That was the hardest scene to edit, because just the levels of my performance, and it was very tricky to pull together.
How did you cope with that? For concentrating on because it's quite an intense scene, isn't it? How did you cope with keeping that level of focus and worrying about the problems, and then directing the other actors as well?
It was a really tough one, and I think I just got through it. Totally honest with you, I think I just got through it. It was a big learning experience. It wasn't something that I kind of walked in and I knew how it was gonna go. It was all the problems came at me, and it was just quickly solving problems. But I think it's that thing of like, I was actually chatting to a DOP recently, and they were, from their point of view, they were saying what makes a good director to them is someone that knows the answers, or someone that confidently says they don't know the answers. And it's not someone who tries to make out they know the answers and fumbles and makes mistakes. And I think those situations, it's just like, I would ask the questions, or I would be like, listen, I'm struggling with this shot, how do we do it? Or in that particular train scene, where it was a very heightened scene for my character and Corey's character, and there's a bit of a sort of like a set piece going on as well, with blocking and the other characters on the train. So it was the most technical scene in the film, as well as being on a moving train. And that was the point where I really just had to sort of like go into more so actor mode. And I didn't have time to look at playback. It was more of a thing of like, with my DOP Ahmet, have you got it? Or my co-producer, my cousin Michael, I'll just give him a look and they'll be like, we've got it, move on. And it was really just trying to get that connection. What I was directing was the other actors. So like, we had Mark, who was our rambler on the train. And it was more so like, I just focused on the connections between our characters, the movements, the fact that the energy was what we needed it to be. That's what I could see whilst being in the scene. But it was very exhausting. I remember when we wrapped up that scene, I was shattered, because your brain's just going at so much. It's like when you're doing a scene, it's heightened. That already takes a lot out of you. But then you add on to the fact that you're somewhat. You are directing, you're the actor as well. It's fascinating, but an interesting,
I remember experience. A shoot I did, and I was a very minor character, but because the TV or the episode took place in over 1 or 2 days, my character had to be there, even if I didn't have any scenes where I was talking. And there was one, I was there the whole day, and I was just waiting in my trailer. And I remember going back, And I may have did 2 hours of filming, and I was so tired because I was just waiting. I was poised, ready to go on to set. And obviously, I was a newer actor, so there was not nerves, but I had a heightened awareness maybe that I wouldn't have now. But having to do all those things must have been a huge undertaking. How did you go about directing yourself? Would you go watch it back on the monitor? Did you find that a problem rather than watching it in the moment? Because I guess a director watches it and thinks, right, that needs to be different. Would you then have to go keep switching?
Yeah. So I'll just quickly answer one other thing you brought up, which I think is, for me at least, and I can really relate to it, like the waiting. You know, when that's for me is one of the hardest things being an actor is the waiting, is the sort of the anticipation or the just balancing your energy levels and you got to go, especially when you're on that level as an actor. That was the most comforting thing as being the writer, being the actor and the director, is that there was no waiting. You were always on. And I think in Silicon Valley they call it, like, is it flow state, when you're in, you know, if you're coding, you just get into this flow state where you're just locked, zoned in, and you're just going. That's what it was like, because there was no time to wait around. As soon as we called cut, there was 100 questions coming at me, or there's another problem solved, or there's something to think about for the next shot. And I loved that because I didn't have to wait around. I was in that mindset throughout the film, which was great. Exhausting at the end, but I think that really helped, and that's something I loved about it. And I don't know how you get past that other than being the lead in a film or a series or a stage play where you're actually doing stuff all the time, because it's fun.
Sure. We haven't really spoken about what the film is about, but how did you come about from when you started writing this, from the first day you put pen to paper or you started typing to when you made it? How did it develop in your mind, and how did it change? Because it's a story based on something that happened to you, or it was inspired by...
Yeah, so the story is, so basically, to give context, so before I moved to London, so I'm from Birmingham, before I moved to London and sort of got into the TV, film, acting world, I used to work in education, and primarily I was a one-to-one mentor for young people that expelled from mainstream school, and it was one-to-one tuition, so you'd be assigned to a student, and if it went badly, that could be one day, but if it went well, you could be with them for a year, 2 years, and you'd see that one student every single day, Monday to Friday, and you'd be with them from, let's say, I don't know, 9:30 till 3 p.m. sort of thing. So it's a lot of time, and I worked out quite easily, but like, you know, I was spending more time with that young person, age 14 to 16, who are very conflicted and sort of finding their place in the world. I was spending more time with them than my own friends or family or partners. Like, when you tot up the hours, there was no one in my life I was spending as much time with as this 15, 14-year-old boy or girl. And I thought that was fascinating because, you know, I'd find little things like slang or phraseologies or even temperament at situations that I'm in, you know, I'd be doing things. I'd be like, oh, where's that? Oh, it's because I'm spending so much time with, you know, this person. And I thought, that's quite interesting. I wonder what's the other... What are they getting from this, if anything? You know, like what are they? You know, what's that shared experience? And I thought that's fascinating. There's something about that job. I mean, because the young people I was mentoring, they were statemented and weren't allowed to be taught in classroom environments for various reasons. We would teach and carry out our sessions in cafes, parks, libraries, museums. So it's very unorthodox and very unique experiences you'd be having. And there were so many moments that actually did happen where I thought, this is amazing. I mean, I'm taking so much from it as a person, but I thought there's a story in this. And it wasn't until years later until I was sort of like, I was always percolating and thinking about it in my head, but nothing really came from it. But I was just thinking in scenes, almost like, oh, that'd be a really good scene. And then I guess when it came to it, a friend of mine, Carl Earl Akran, who's a writer-director, he was applying for BFI funding, and then it came on my radar. I thought, oh, there's a space for short. If you've got a short film idea, there's a space where this could be directed, and that's what I did. I sort of like I started developing it with originally with the Midlands Hub, sort of like BFI fraction.
How did you get involved with that? Did you just approach them?
So it was kind of like right timing, right place. So as I was starting to formulate the idea and thought, I want to turn this into something. Is it a stage play? Is it a TV series? What is this? I was around a few people that were on the short film circuit, and then I just started to do some research. So I started to follow certain accounts that were connected to this, so BAFTA, BIFA, BFI, etc. And I followed the BFI on Twitter, and then I saw a post that they had, which was like, it was their short. I think it was their how to basically, if you've never written a script before, short film script, here's an opportunity. Send us your idea, and you can get onto this online program during COVID times, and we'll take you through the building blocks of writing your first short film script. And I was like, well, this is perfect timing. So I had, the process was you have to sort of like write your log line, your synopsis.
What was your log line?
I think my log line was from it was something along the lines of the initial one I sent in, or the sort of the final one.
Both.
The initial one I probably sent in was something like anxious mentor and his rebellious and sometimes violent student are traveling from Birmingham to London on a photography trip when an unforeseen altercation happens, something like that. And then if I try and remember my actual final one, which is still being refined, even now I look at it, I could probably make it a bit better.
Filmmaker tries to film on train.
Yeah. Super to the point. I think it kind of narrowed down to not too dissimilar, but it was something along the lines of like, I think it was like Maury and an anxious mentor on the verge of a breakdown. He's taken his rebellious student. I can't actually recall it.
Yeah, it was similar to what it was.
It's similar, yeah.
Did you find it difficult because we're all so used to watching either long-running series or features, did you find it difficult to keep it in a short space of time? How long is it? 16 minutes, is it?
14.
14 minutes. So did you find it difficult to keep it into that time frame?
It was a tricky one, and I think the short film genre is a genre in itself, and that's what was great being on that scheme where you kind of like essentially can tell a contained story, and the roadmap to doing that. The roadmap to actually doing that. So yeah, I think it was a tricky one, but I think it's just trying to. So what the great advice I was told on this course was what you want to do with your protagonist is. Chase them up a tree and then proceed to throw stones at them. And what I took from that sort of metaphor was, okay, I need to take my protagonist and I need to sort of really turn the heat up on them and keep pushing them until there's a breaking point, and then they need to change or something needs to happen. So I just kind of took that and I really sort of overlaid it over my idea. And I think when I was developing the script, it was probably at 15 or 16 pages. And some of the feedback was I lost the whole page of it. Just went like there was a whole scene at the beginning that you just don't see now. That was the first thing to go, which was quite hard at first. But the person that advised me to cut it out was like, you've not lost this scene, Darryl. This is a great scene. Just use it for something else. You don't ever lose the scenes. So yeah, it was sort of like I quite like being. Minimal as well. So I think that was it kind of came natural to me in a sense. And I'm very happy with when I'm doing the edit, the cut. I quite enjoy like, how do we hone this down as small, as tightly as possible? Like how, like as economical as possible, the script, like trying to lose any chaff. That's what I was thinking. And I think being an actor and writing scripts is somewhat of an advantage because, I'm very sure writers who aren't actors do this, but you're playing out the scene as you're writing it. You're kind of speaking a dialogue, and then we know as actors what sounds right, and do we need all these words to get to that point? It could be in this could be actually in a look.
And I don't know about you, but I see even big TV shows that I get sent for auditions, there's still a lot of things that could just be cut, or the dialogue is too faffy. I still find that even in big productions. So it's good to be aware of that, even at this stage.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, I think I had some moments in there, like, what's the phrase, kill your
Kill Your
darlings.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that balance that you kind of like. It's easy to give it's easy to give sort of like advice or opinions to other friends and filmmakers, but when you're doing it yourself, you're kind of like, it's always a balance of like, does this dialogue, does it push the story forward? Does it work for the film, for the character, or are you trying to show how good you are as a writer? And it's that balance of like just knowing that it is an artistic expression. This is just my opinion, by the way, but it is an artistic expression, but you're trying to move the story forward and trying to make it as real as possible. Like, that's what I was trying to do. So it was always really scrutinizing, refining every word on the page. And it goes back to what I said. It's like, I had so much riding on this idea, this film, this project. Just personally, I thought I need to make it as I need to be, not, there's no such thing as perfection, but I need to make it, it needs to be. So I'll just refine it. I'd analyze that word. Does that word need to be there, or is that the right word? Why am I saying that? And like we do it, acting identity. We have your actions book, and you'd really work on what's this word mean? What's the character trying to say? But so I'd use those principles in the writing as well.
And from when you started out just as an actor, how do you feel now as a performer, artist, for want of a better term, now having made a film? Do you approach things differently as an actor? Do you feel a greater degree of satisfaction having been in control of a project and bringing it to fruition? Yeah,
definitely. I think going through the process of writing a script and going through the process of directing and just making a film from start, being involved from conception, throughout the edit, throughout the promotion, the festival circuit, it's made me a better actor. Like 100% a better actor. I think, and I guess tangibly how it's done that is, it's made me, I always had a deep respect for directors, but I now understand, albeit from a short film perspective, I understand. So I know, from my point of view, I know the stress they're going through. I know the amount of spinning plates they've got going on. So maybe when I was probably a bit more naive as an actor, and I thought, oh, I'm not getting the attention or whatever I thought it might be. I understand there's so much going on. So I think I can just, as an actor now, and I found it amazing. I did a short film very recently with an amazing director, and I just loved fitting into their vision, and I could do it so much more confidently and so much more, with the foresight of just knowing trying to work out what I can give to them to sort of help them and the project execute the vision. That's it. And I think that's what I've learned as a director and a writer. And it's given me more confidence as well as an actor, which I think is a huge thing. And just, I think because...
And increased your self-worth as a performer as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think back to your sort of original point of like, we've been friends for a long time now, and we've been we've seen each other's work for a long time. And I think the role of Maury, it's my, I love that role, that character. It's my favorite role so far. And I think it's the most meatiest thing I've done as an actor so far until this recent short film that was very, very, very different and unique. But I think that's just given me a lot of confidence, and it's just made me go, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm capable, and I want to sort of move forward.
You've always struck me as quite a humble guy and a performer, but was there anything that sort of bruised your ego at all during this process?
I think, it's a good question. I think
no,
no, not at all, not at all. Actually,
this question,
the train scene on the film that did bruise my ego because I was in the edit, and we had to save that. But yeah, and it just struck me, and it was a learning for me of the limits of what you can do as a actor director in certain circumstances,
During the edit, did you feel like I've caused a lot of problems for everyone?
Yes, yeah. There was a point where I was just like, okay, so like, you know, in a very matter of fact sense, you know, you've got the ratio. Okay, you know, you're this is an important arc for your character where they're gonna sort of like emotionally reach a high point, and you kind of want to bring the audience on that journey, like, you know, bring them along. And because there was so much going on whilst filming that train scene, you know, like for example, the train's moving, the train's a lot louder than we expected for sound. It's a lot bumpier. It's an old rickety train. We actually blocked this and rehearsed this scene multiple times, but then it was actually a different train to what the carriage was. So it was a lot smaller. And so then the movement of the scene, everything was, I'm so glad we rehearsed before and blocked things out, but like it had to shift so much. And, you know, Mark's character was so much closer than we ever expected. And so that was a lot of pressure. And I think where I would have liked to, you know, in the performance, really bring that build up and then the turning point. You know, I think I probably skipped, rather than going from like one to 10 gradually like that, it kind of like 1 to 5, you know, it's sort of thing. There was just so much going on. But my amazing editor, Saki Barnor, and she saved the day, and I think it works. It's quite interesting. So I also think us as actors, we're so self-critical, right? And we're so we're so hyper aware of what we're doing or not doing. But I've had feedback from people on the film, and people love that train scene. And it's the one I was most worried about.
Yeah, when I saw it, I was like, a train?
Yeah.
Darryl Dunn, this is amazing.
So it goes to say, it's like, you know, it's that old sort of saying, adage, whatever. It's like, you know, once you put your work out there, it's not yours anymore, and you shouldn't really cast too much opinion on it because it might affect what other people think of it. So yeah, like it was a scene that I was actually worried about in the edit. I was like, oh God, how are we going to save this? Because it was, yeah, I just thought, I thought the nuances of my performance were just probably not there, but they are there. You just grab it out in the edit.
Yeah. Did you, now having experienced that technical difficulty, when you write again, do you think you'll have that awareness of where you're writing the scene?
It's a very good question. I think so, because I think what I'll do now when I write a scene like that again, I will be thinking about how we are going to. I mean, I was thinking that, but at the time I was just thinking as a writer.
But now you've got the emotional attachment
yes,
of what you went through in order to get that scene.
Exactly. So I think I'll just be able to sort of like really hone it and have more on the page and go through that journey so I can really plot point it a lot better. But I think ultimately these things are always going to happen. And I think ultimately shooting on a moving train, on a moving vintage train, is and within 2 hours, and you know it's always going to be a stress. Yeah
There's so many factors to control. Like I was filming recently, and there was a fog machine in some woods, and the wind just blew the wrong way, which delayed things for so long. And it's just things you don't. Well, I didn't have to think about it. I was the actor, but the production team had to sort of cope with that.
Those sort of things are what can you do in those situations? It's just kind of like, it's just, this is what life's throwing you right now. It's like we had a similar-ish thing. We had scenes that we were shooting in the forest, and we did 2 recce's there. We walked around, we found our locations. But then when we went back on the actual day to film, the grass had grown longer, the plants are blue. And you're like, oh, hold on, where?
You've got like a lawnmower mowing like 12 acres of.
Where's that bush? That was you can And the other thing as well, like you walking without kit and walking without dragging all the equipment. It's very different. So all of a sudden we were in the forest, and we're like, well, actually, hold on. It's going to take us a lot longer to actually move from here to there. That's actually going to take us 30 minutes, not 5 or 10. You know. So we had to lose lots of scenes, essentially, or not lots, should I say. We had to lose a sort of like we had a bit of a montage scene that we just had to strip away, and it was one of those things, you know. My first AD and my producer, came over to me like, okay, we need to lose stuff. And then as a director, it was very quickly I had to work out what scenes to cut, and not from a vanity point of view, not from anything, but like what's going to serve the film best. Like, what do we need to keep the story going? So, and you just quickly just were losing, like, killing your darling sort of thing. You know, there was a scene that I had with we actually had the prop as well. Louis, our art director, he found this trolley that he brought. There was a scene in a trolley where Maury was. Yeah, it was. I thought it was going to be a good scene. It's gone. We just had to lose it. And yeah, it's just keeping it moving, making a solid, confident decision, and keeping it moving for the best of the film. But yeah, that's all you can really do. I think it is problem solving. Yeah.
When you first came into this industry, the things you were watching and the things that influenced you, how has that changed? Were you more into sort of mainstream TV stuff, but now you're exposing yourself to more sort of idiosyncratic projects?
You know, I think not necessarily. I think my sort of viewing habits they've probably evolved, but like what I've been finding recently is certain commercial films that I loved, absolutely loved as a sort of a young teenager, that really shaped my love of film. I'm seeing now they're getting a bit of a resurgence and a bit of love from the film industry right now. I'm like, oh, for me that gives me a lot of confidence. I'm like, oh, I love that film. I didn't know why. I mean, it's a Mission Impossible 1. One of my favorite films.
Really good.
It's an incredible film. And sometimes I was always a bit sort of like, you'd think like, oh, you can't say that to film people because they'd be like, oh, Mission Impossible. But I was like...
It's Brian De Palma, and he's a renowned filmmaker.
Yes. And now I saw a post on Instagram, literally, I think it was like 2 days ago, and then someone was saying like, this absolute classic, like, this is, neo-noir at its finest. And is that specific scene where it's Ethan Hunt and Catridge, and they're in the sort of
the diner.
They're in the diner.
Yeah.
Oh, and the sort of
you've never seen me very upset.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to dance to the devil? That's fine by me.
Enough, Hunt.
It literally that scene. I knew the dialogue for that whole film. Like, I loved it so much, and I just thought at that age I didn't have the understanding of
sort of sophistication of knowing how it plays out.
But then it's so sort of comforting, and knowing that, oh, you know what, I was on track, and it's validation. But I was like, so yeah, I love mainstream commercial films, and I understand as a sort of it's the film business. That's what I think I'm learning more of. Like, we're artists, we're actors, we're writers, directors, but it's also, we're in the film business. And I think there's something that, I've not fully worked out that balance yet as a filmmaker going forward, but like, it's something I'm very much considering, is that I want to make art. I want to make emotional stories that bring audience on a journey. I want to make stories that put audiences into uncomfortable situations and feelings, but you can't do that without an audience watching it, which is the business side of it. It needs to sell. It needs to put bums on seats. It needs to be on platforms. It needs to. So there's that thing of like, I want to make films that people see. So it's that marriage, like, Triangle of Sadness, Ruben Östlund. Like, I think that's one of my favorite films of recent times. And I might be sort of like mixing up what he said, but paraphrasing, but Force Majeure, which was one of his earlier films, which I think is perfection as a film. It truly is. But I saw him talking about why he's sort of like ballooned his films, and maybe using more sort of like American talent and British talent, is because like it's a business, and he's got to provide for his family, and he wants to get to the next project, and you have to grow and be a bit more mainstream, I guess. And I guess arguably, I mean, I still think it's a truly beautiful film, Triangle of Sadness, but it's catering for probably a bigger audience than Force Majeure, maybe arguably. And I think that's a decision he's made as a filmmaker. And I think it's quite important to remember it is a business, and it's just really tapping into who you are and as a storyteller, and just making sure you're doing stuff that is still on your personal creative journey, but is still at the end of the day, you need to keep the lights on. You know, you need to pay bills and whatnot. Yeah.
When you're talking about Mission Impossible, then there's a lot of films I haven't seen, even some of my favorites for some years. But as I've become more aware of filmmaking, because I love the filmmaking side, it's not just about the acting, as it is as for you. You're almost watching a new film.
Yeah.
When you see it, you're like, oh, I know exactly the Dutch tilt, or
yes, yeah,
which is used in Mission Impossible one a lot.
Yeah, and so well.
Yeah,
it's so well. It's incredible. Like, yeah, I rewatched that scene before I don't know why, but I rewatched that scene before I shot Hard to Reach. I was just thinking, how can we get a Dutch tilt? I was going to
do a random one.
Can we do a Dutch tilt? And he's like, why?
On the train.
No,
yeah,
Darryl.
Yeah, but it's great to revisit these things, and even performances. You see them and like, oh, you just see the little nuance.
Yeah.
Like it's affected you as an audience member, but you don't know why.
Yeah.
And I bore people I know with all sorts of things, like 12 Angry Men, how throughout the film the camera gets lower and lower, and the lenses they use are different to make the room feel more smaller, so it becomes more claustrophobic.
Wow.
Throughout it. But I never knew that until I was told it or sort of recognized it. But then when you watch it back, you have the emotional reaction to it, but you won't necessarily know why.
That's incredible. Did you feel anything at the time? Do you casting your mind back?
Well, of course, the story becomes more intense and sort of acute as it goes along. But now you know why the filmmaking craft has done that as much as the performances in the script. Yeah,
it's incredible. I think revisiting older films there's I'm trying to remember what the film was now, but that I want to rewatch. What was it? Like Heat, for example.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
Yeah. I read somewhere that Heat is now having a new resurgence with young people on. I think it's just been released on Netflix or Disney. I'm not sure. And apparently, young people are coming to it for the first time. You know, the algorithm's sending them to it, but like they're seeing that, and I'm like, that's amazing. And Heat's such an incredible film.
I think it's a perfect film.
Yeah.
It's not my favorite film, but I would say objectively as you can be, I think it's a perfect film.
It's amazing. Like, sometimes when I'm just trying to, the coffee scene with Pacino and De Niro, or like what I even love more is that this in Heat, spoilers for anyone, but like when he's sort of like, he's free, he's going to get away, he's got his new woman in the car with him, they're driving, and they're going to go into the sunset, and then like it's all on him. It's his face, De Niro's facial reactions, and like he's really annoyed by. Is it Catridge? No, I don't know. That's Mission
Which character?
The bad guy, the one who's sort of like the long hair.
Oh, John Voight.
No. So he was the gang member that really messed things up. He shot someone.
Oh, Danny Trejo, was it? He shoots him. He goes into this and shoots him. In the
it's not
hotel
Danny
room.
Trejo. It's someone else. But De Niro's in the car. He's driving and he's escaping. He's going to be home free. He's got his lovers there, and it's the end of go. But he turns off, and it's just all in his facial reaction. And the lady, who's an incredible actress, I don't know her name, but she played that role so amazingly well. She's like, "Oh, what's going on?" He said, "I was going to make a quick stop," and obviously the film ends the way it does. But I think there's so many moments in Heat where I'm just like, this is perfection.
It's because there's a sequel or a prequel coming.
So I think I understand he's written a book.
He's written a book, but there is Adam Driver, I think, is going to.
Wow.
Whether it's 100%, I don't know, but I heard it's going ahead, I think.
Okay, I'm in for that. That's
and
epic.
Michael Mann is doing it. It's not someone else who's come along.
That's epic. Like I think that's amazing. Like, I think Heat's incredible. And what was the other film as well with Patrick Swayze and Keanu Reeves?
Point Break.
I know, random
So
one.
good.
But incredible film. Like, I watched that as a young kid, like teenager, whatever, and I didn't know anything about film, but I loved that film. And back then, with not having the sophistication of what I'm hoping I may have now, you think, oh, it's a film about surfing, but then you actually really clock it, and you go back and you're like, no, and who directed it?
Catherine Bigelow.
Catherine Bigelow.
And it's such a fun, ridiculous film, but when you watch it, you're like, you believe it's happening. It's not like some huge. It's not like the Expendables. It
Yeah.
does kind of take itself seriously enough to sort of you to buy into it and be like, this
Yeah.
is really this is true. Like this could happen.
It's an incredible it's amazing. Like I used to rewatch it. Like I think at the time Channel 5 used to play it quite a lot. Like I love that film, and you know
They remade it, didn't they?
which
I've never seen.
I've never seen it.
No
No.
intention of
So
seeing it.
yeah, I'm not seen it. But I know the original, like with what's his name popping up from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Flea was
Flea,
it?
I think Flea was in it, and then the lead singer as well. Yeah, it's just an incredible film, man. It's just so like how you can take the surfing culture, mix it with
a crime film, a
crime.
heist
It's like
film.
what, and it works perfectly. It's amazing. Yeah, I need to rewatch that.
Finally, which I always ask the guest is there a film that you're ashamed you haven't seen?
What was the film you mentioned just then? I was trying to play, I was pacifying off that. I had watched. I was like, oh yeah, great, yeah. Was it 12
Angry Men.
I've not seen it. Yeah,
really
I've
good.
not seen it. I need to see that.
And the remake, they did William Friedkin, the Exorcist director, did a remake of it, and that was good.
Yeah.
It was more of a TV version, but I thought that was good also. But it was a stage play.
What's the other film? In fact, I can't remember the name of it. Oh, Orson Welles. Or was it?
Citizen Kane.
I've not seen Citizen Kane, and that's something that
was his first film.
Which apparently, and it's just
Yeah,
it just came out.
And it's quite modern when you look at it, and he sort of broke a lot of barriers. And he was about 26.
It's
He'd
insane.
never made a film,
Yeah.
and he even said, because I didn't know some of the things, I'd be like ordering people to do things that they knew way more about. He goes, but that naivety was kind of lucky for me at the time because it made it what it was.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's also amazing to hear because, like, you know, what I was saying before with the train scene or moments on film is just like, you know, I was my first film, so like I would lean on people that knew more than me, and you'd ask questions. So to hear that he also, I mean, I said, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. Yeah, why? I always think, why not just ask the question? You know, yeah.
That's it. And if we want to see your film,
Yeah, so at the moment it's not on any sort of like platforms or online. We're still in our festival circuit run. So, but yeah, if it's called Hard to Reach.
as is the film at the moment.
Yeah, it's very hard to reach. Yeah, it's so meta. But yeah, like you can follow it on Instagram, Hard to Reach Film. But yeah. So it's going to be coming out soon. We're probably towards the end of the year. I think we're trying to work out where we can distribute it. But yeah, it's also it's in development as a feature. That's what I'm working on as well. So yeah, hopefully you'll see it soon.
Excellent. Good stuff. And thanks for joining us, everyone. If you'd like to subscribe and comment below, and we'll see you next time.